I saw that you had not had a proper welcome from someone from Chicago other than through music. So I extend a philanthropic welcome to you to Chicago. I see my task also, and this might not be the inspiring part, I see my task to actually put the future of philanthropy in the context of the future. So the future may not be as inspiring as we would like it to be right now. But I will share with you some thoughts about the future of philanthropy. And I have to say that I called my friend Darren Walker, who's the president of the Ford Foundation, the other day, and I said, I'm stealing your words. So not all of the words about the future of philanthropy are my own. I'm saying that at the beginning. But then I want to share with you what I think the qualities are of organizations that will succeed in the context of the world and the changing nature of philanthropy. So, as I said, before we talk about the future of philanthropy, let's talk about the future. I have to say that some days I am just daunted by evidence everywhere of conflict and disparity and disease, by how fast change is occurring, by the barriers that so many people face as they just try to live their lives, by how connected everything is to everything else, and how hard it is to untangle the pieces to fix them. And finally, I am daunted by a lack of far-sighted, bold leadership that is motivated to act in the public interest. Now, in his annual essay, MacArthur's immediate past president, Bob Gallucci, made a set of very sobering predictions about the world. He said the international system, how nation-states relate to one another, will remain what he called an ungoverned state of nature for the foreseeable future, despite globalization and other internationalizing trends. He came from a State Department perspective, so that framed his worldview. He said that the U.S. would retain its global preeminence in military power. But heavy reliance on new technologies will also lead to vulnerabilities. Adversaries unable to confront the U.S. directly will be tempted to attack our cyber assets, which, as we see virtually every day, are truly inadequately protected. He said there's a persistent threat of war. He focused on nuclear war between India and Pakistan. He said that religious rivalry, territorial disputes, and power imbalance make the relationship between the two countries unstable. But these conditions exist elsewhere as well. Conflict there or elsewhere based on these elements would be catastrophic, undoubtedly with consequences for both the United States and around the world. Now, our only real peer, China, he predicted, is likely to continue its peaceful rise, hold together as a nation, and come to a competitive accommodation with the U.S. But other scenarios are possible. Here in America, we face severe systemic fiscal problems, an increasing concentration of wealth that may undermine both equality and opportunity, and we hear it every day, a public discourse that is both rancorous and divisive, a deep disagreement within American society about the role of government, the freedom of individuals, and how to advance the common good actually remains unresolved. And if this situation does not improve, the United States may become a far less cohesive society and less supportive of quality of life or social justice at home and around the world. Now, of course, powerful trends are also driving change, and some of these go to the heart of the agenda of Opportunity International. Climate change will likely alter food production patterns and the availability of fresh water and increase the competition for scarce resources around the world. Rapid industrialization and development and growing populations have already put a premium on these commodities around the world. This trend will intensify if weather patterns disrupt production and supply patterns, and it may lead to conflict, which has a particular effect on the poorest and most vulnerable people around the world. Now, also around the world, the rapid urbanization is unprecedented. By 2040, the number of people who live in cities will double to 6 billion. That's 65% of the world's population and 84% of Americans. virtually every aspect of life will be affected. Security, privacy, access to food, healthcare, jobs, transportation, I'm running out of fingers here, energy, environment, and recreation. Now, clearly, city planning and governments and public services have a daunting transformation ahead of them. Now, the world's population is aging rapidly. Now, that's most obvious in the developed world, but there's a lag in the institutional readiness to support nations of elderly people, particularly elderly people whose race or ethnicity may differ from that of younger citizens who the elders will turn to for support. In the developing world, the youth bulge is a concern, with its prospects for disconnection from the workforce, alienation, and a backlash as governments try to contain dissatisfaction. Now, the retreat from democracy in Russia, the chaotic aftermath of the Arab Spring, and the uneven course of events in Latin America and Africa, they remind us that the path to good government is not direct. It's complicated by complex cultural and historical factors that are at play, and they are not easily amenable to the comfort of the kind of universal principles that we hope would guide our actions. Now, together, I'm sure in this room we could add a lot of other things to the list. Let's not do that. But what the list does is it makes me and others wonder if the scale of the problems, their deep roots, and their complexity, the pace of change, the connectedness I mentioned, and more, have altogether rendered our traditional institutions of all types incapable of effective action. Now, this complicated world with all its challenges, some of them even existential in nature, is the context for thinking about the future of philanthropy. Now, I want to give credit to the Monitor Institute's 2010 report called What's Next for Philanthropy. They said that philanthropy is taking place in a context that is radically different from the environment in which many of its current practices and behaviors were developed. As Monitor said, in the face of all of this, foundations have become more strategic. They're pushing to improve by clarifying their goals. They're building theories. They're examining the increasing trove of data to make decisions. They're consulting more. They're collaborating more. They're launching experiments of all kinds. You've heard it all, the venture philanthropy, the online giving platforms, the competitions, the market-based approaches, impact investing, pay-for-success mechanisms, all coupled with a more intense focus on narrower objectives. But in a compelling call to action, the report says these changes will not be enough. And I quote, "Too little progress has been made, while problems continue to grow. Time is running out on too many issues and on too many lives." Now, responding to this, I think you'll see philanthropy work hard to overcome what the Case Foundation, in its Be Fearless campaign, calls a natural caution to make incremental changes, to look to what seemed to work in the past and try to do more of it. I think you'll see more foundations setting more audacious goals and making big bets. Foundations with broad and varied portfolios may seek to reduce the fragmentation and concentrate their resources in fewer areas for greater impact and more progress toward solutions. Now, this is ironic, just as the evidence-based, quote, "doing what works" movement is gaining real momentum at last, we're going to see more and more radical experimentation, spurred in part by the presence of an increasing number of living donors fresh from their success in the corporate world. Now, with experimentation, you're likely to see greater comfort with failure and greater transparency about it, as the search is on for ways to really wrestle the world's big problems to the ground and to get smarter about what to do. We will see more and more effective collaboration amongst philanthropies, like SIPSI, the terrific Partnership to Strengthen Innovation and Practice in Secondary Education, which you may hear a little bit more about in a few minutes from MasterCard President Rita Roy. You'll also see a blurring of the lines between the public and the private sector, and between philanthropy and the powerful distribution channels that business has built. All of this is a pragmatic acknowledgement that the challenges we face are too big for any actor. Too big for the most powerful government, too big for the biggest foundation, too big for the wealthiest individuals, even if all of us are working in the common good. For philanthropy, Hewlett Foundation President Larry Kramer said it just right, I think. He said, none of us has the resources to make serious inroads on big problems ourselves. But most of all, I think what we'll see is a greater sense of urgency. By this, I don't mean a new bias toward the short-term silver bullet solution, because these are few and far between, if they exist at all. What I mean is I think that we will see a bias toward action, sometimes even before analysis is complete, and we need to get comfortable with that. Finally, however any of us feels about the increasing concentration of wealth, and I'm sure there's a lot of us who don't feel that this is a really good thing, the coming decades will be characterized by a growth of resources in the philanthropic sector. The challenge will be to see if these resources can serve two perhaps conflicting purposes. On the one hand, to continue to support the breadth of organizations, both large and small, that do the hard work every day of on-the-ground help for and investment in the at-risk and the deeply in need individuals, families, and communities. And at the same time, will there be the resources allocated to work with the right actors to go deep, to change the systems and the policy regimes that shape the lives of virtually everyone on the planet? The question is, of course, in this time of disruptive change in the world, coupled with the problems that have been with us forever, and new responses from philanthropy, what kinds of organizations will survive? What kind of organizations will lead? What kind of organizations will be effective partners in tackling the tough problems? Now, the most successful, effective organizations will be those that focus on sustainable solutions. They understand that while aid is essential, investing in the capacity of people to lead their lives with agency changes them, their families, their communities, and even their nations forever. These organizations see the need for both local solutions and the kind of international solutions that lead to more peaceful and secure regions around the world. These are organizations that are powered by passion. They believe that comprehensive, holistic solutions are required because virtually every aspect of life is connected to all the others. They embrace innovation. They're not afraid of audacious goals, of scale, and of rigorous measurement of their progress toward achieving those goals. They're comfortable in the community and in the halls of power. They're comfortable working with local leaders and individuals, but they're willing to try to influence those who hold the keys to or stand in the way of beneficial change. Now, many organizations have some of these characteristics. It's the rare organization that has them all. And I'm learning that Opportunity International is one of those rare organizations, and they have the results to prove it. Whatever the state of the world and the future of philanthropy, I am reminded that you cannot work in philanthropy unless you are an optimist. Unless you think that problems can be solved, that evidence of what works really matters, and that taking risks is required, and that there is an inherent goodness in people that can be both tapped into and that makes working on the tough problems worthwhile. I believe that Opportunity International lives those ideals, and I'm honored to have been asked to participate in this inspiring program and to fully associate myself with the goal of creating momentum across the array of activities of opportunity, but particularly behind entrepreneurship and its ability to shape a new economic reality for people, communities, and nations. Thank you very much.